Here it's Monday.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And the sun's out. Hooray! And it's nearly October and you're going,
It's
what?
gorgeous, isn't it? The weather's fantastic.
I know, it's bonkers. Tell me about when you were diagnosed with dyslexia, Ross.
It was actually strange. It was almost exactly a year after I finished education. I was president of the student union. I was doing a presentation which required me to write on the board what I was talking about. And a girl whose father specialised in dyslexia just come up and says, "You have all the classic signs. You've made every spelling mistake that is typical of a dyslexic. You should get yourself tested."
So what is typical?
It's a type of spellings. There's a loads of signs of dyslexia, and it's not just spelling. Like the average dyslexic would be untidy. Your average dyslexic would be late. It's very common for people with dyslexia not to be able to tie their shoelaces or take a long time to learn as well. So there is signs.
It's interesting. I've got a friend who's dyslexic, and I was helping him do his CV last week.
Right. Okay.
And he'd done his
Credit
CV.
to you. Helping.
Well, but the thing is, to me, it didn't need much help because
Yeah.
I thought, you're dyslexic, that's just about perfect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought when you had dyslexia, words swum around and you couldn't form sentences and things.
Well, you see, what dyslexia normally is, within the brain, it's an issue with sequencing in general. So a person that's dyslexic will not sequence in the same way as what a person that is non-dyslexic will. So it manifests itself in a lot of different areas, and the most common one to spell is reading, writing. But then you get into it's quite a complex thing, but they do compensate around it.
So how does somebody with dyslexia, therefore, format their CV just about perfectly?
Because they're known as, your friend is probably known as a highly compensating dyslexic, where it's the brain is aware they have an issue. So they do things that, like, for example, when I send an email, I'll check it 3 times. It's very rare that an email that I send will have a mistake on it. But my dyslexia means I have to check it 3 or 4 times to make sure it's right. So that's what your friend's done in that case.
Okay. So had you known that you had a problem before this lady went, "Excuse me, you've got the classic signs of dyslexia"?
Yes. When I was at school, and I must admit, schools are fantastic now, but when I was younger they weren't. And I went to my English teacher and I says, "I think I may be dyslexic."
How old were you then?
I was 13.
Okay.
Yeah. And she says, "Don't be silly, of course you're not. You're running late, go." And I was like, right, okay, bye. And that was it.
And what made you think that you might be at that point?
Well, I was always strong on all the other subjects except English. And I'm a very confident person. I used to be captain of the football team. I had a good experience at school, but we had to stand up and read in front of the class. And the fear that it would put into me was phenomenal because I just simply couldn't read that well. And it was my little secret, until I had to read in front of the class.
How did you compensate for that?
I managed to actually, most of the time, talk my way out of reading at the time. I got on really well with the English teachers. I have to, I've got laryngitis. Every excuse under the sun to try and...
I can't do it, sir, not today.
There's something wrong with my throat.
So, teacher said no, so you lived with it. Were your parents not aware that you might have a problem?
If you look through the school reports, it was obvious that, Ross has performed well in every other subject, and the English teacher was well, although Ross is great at creative thinking and speaking, he lacks basic, sentence structure, grammar. We recommend Ross stays as far away from English as he can. That's why I've done engineering at university. So,
are there different types of dyslexia?
There's varying levels, yes.
Okay.
Basically, yeah.
And so, can you tell me what the verbal memory thing is around dyslexia?
Verbal memory, normally... See, a lot of talks that I do is trying to get across the fact that dyslexia is just different. It's not necessarily a disadvantage. And they come with a lot of very, very, very strong qualities as well. And your average dyslexic will remember verbal conversations very, very well. And if somebody's got a dyslexic in the family, you're talking about something that happened 13 years ago, that dyslexic will probably remember to the exact minute detail of what was said in that conversation and what it was about and the context and everything around it. Which, when you think about it, with regards to business or a job, that's a fantastic skill to have, because imagine if you're sitting at a boardroom level and you need to remember something that wasn't minuted properly. You've probably got somebody sitting there on the board that's dyslexic that will be able to remember that conversation perfectly.
It sounds like an autistic trait almost. 'Cause
Yeah, it's different. They're generally very good at being analytical as well, so they can spot problems where a person probably couldn't spot them. Yeah. So
a teacher said to you, "Don't be ridiculous," at 13.
Yeah.
And then you went through school and you went to university. So if nobody helped you with your dyslexia, which wasn't diagnosed, what coping strategies did you use, especially at uni?
Yeah. Simply, I had to work harder than everybody else. I had to work much longer, and I had to put more effort in. And I had to really do a course that I didn't like. Because I did enjoy engineering, but it's a very, very, very hard degree to do. But I couldn't do most other degrees that had English in. And I would have liked to do something like marketing, but instead I had to spend 4 years in a classroom full of 100 guys when I would have rather have spent 4 years in a classroom full of half girls. Because I was at uni.
But did you... I mean, was there a certain strategy you used if you had to pick up a book and read something?
Yeah.
Was there a strategy to get you through what you might or might not see on that page, so to speak?
Generally, I had to read. Generally, if it was something to do with university or something you had to absorb, you probably had to read it about 3 or 4 times. And that was becoming more apparent as I was getting older and living with the guys that I'd done the degree with. They would read it once, get it. I'd have to read it 3 times to understand it.
I would have thought there must be a lot of headaches associated with dyslexia.
A lot of frustration. Yeah. Headaches. I never really suffered from headaches, but frustration.
If you're using your eyes all the time and you're reading and you're reading and you're reading and you're trying to make stuff go in, I just would have thought one went hand in hand with the other, but maybe not.
I would imagine that somebody who suffered from eye strain, which I don't tend to, would have an increased amount of symptoms. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Coming next, how Ross has used his knowledge of dyslexia to set up a business that's attracted financial backing that runs into hundreds of thousands of pounds. If you're listening to Ross's story and identifying with it, whether from a personal perspective or because someone you know is dyslexic, drop me a text, BBC, and then your message to 81333 as we talk dyslexia at BBC Newcastle.